you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And that, I think, is what really distinguishes Gen Z from millennials, because millennials were told that you can have it all at the same time. And that led to both suffering careers and suffering families, because you only have so many hours in the day. Welcome back to Gen Z Unplugged. Rachel and I are here today with you all to discuss some excitement that's been happening around the Luce Center. We are talking about the Wall Street Journal article that we were featured in. This article came out on November 22nd, and it was written by Rachel Wolf and Paul Overberg. And we are going to get into it and kind of give you all some context. And if you haven't seen it, the premise is all about conservative young women and young women who are changing the narrative, flipping the script of motherhood, marriage, and kind of the seasons of life.
And like Lauren said, the premise of this article is about conservative young women flipping the script. The title is Conservative Young Women Flip the Script, Kids First, Then Career, which again is a super exciting topic for the Wall Street Journal to be covering. And they dive into a whole bunch of topics on how, conservative Gen Z women are now getting their priorities straight and focusing on the eternal things in life versus just the fleeting things that come in and out of certain different seasons. And I think Rachel Wolf talks about how seasons is the new buzzword for conservative young women, and how we can embrace things in seasons and have it all, just not all at the same time.
And we got to know Rachel, who contributed to the article, because she attended our College Women's Summit in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where she got a lot of the interviews and the information for the article. And honestly, that summit, a really central theme of that was this concept about reprioritizing what we find to be important. And we had Alex Clark, Isabel Brown, Erica Donald, KT McFarland, and Reagan Conrad. They all spoke in some capacity on this topic, and we have some clips for you all to share. So they really helped inform and shape this article, which I think is really, really special. And actually, another one of our speakers, Emma Waters from Heritage, the Heritage Foundation, is also featured in this. And she's talking about what it means to go through seasons as a wife and a mother and a career woman and all of that. So there's so many different takes, and we'll kind of get into what those are. But we're just thrilled to be on the forefront of this movement. And I think it's a really, really exciting time to be a woman and to be a conservative woman, to be like on the cutting edge of this philosophy.
Yeah. And like you said, all these examples of these are real life women in Gen Z and beyond too, that have, like, this isn't just an ideology. Like the script is starting to change, and here's the data. There is some data in here too, but hearing their like personal accounts of how they balance career and kids and what that looks like in their real life experience, and just hearing their testimonies to that. Like, this isn't just some far away concept. This is real women right now in Gen Z.
Yeah, who are actually doing it.
Yeah.
And what I love so much about this article is how it talks about how unique Gen Z is. And that's something that, I mean, we are part of Gen Z, so, maybe we're a little biased, but the statistics are there in that Gen Z is not just going to go along with the feminist script or the Tradwife script, that we are interested in cultivating something new. And that's what this really hones in on. It's kind of just to take it down to a kind of a simple explanation is women are saying no to the girl boss mindset of I have to work and I have to push off marriage and family and until I'm 30, 40 years old. And they're also saying no to, I can't have a career. I have to be a trad wife who always stays home and doesn't pursue education or career. So we're as Gen Z cultivating this middle ground, which is where this kind of seasons concept comes into.
Yeah, and our president is also featured in this article. She talks a lot about seasons, and again, she's a real life woman who's done this in her life. And she talks a lot about how Gen Z are, I love this line from her, realists and dreamers. And I just think that describes us so well in this whole concept that you were talking about, how we're not fitting into a box and we're actually asking questions. I feel like our generation is very good at asking questions.
Yeah.
And just, questioning, is this the only way? Is this not the only way? How can we like fit this around what we prioritize in life and things like that, and just like you said, like paving a new way.
Right.
And it was cool that our president was also highlighted in here too, talking about that concept of realists and dreamers and paving this new way.
Yeah, and that's why like we at the Luce Center are just really excited about all of it. So kind of on the theme of Gen Z being so unique and special, Isabel Brown, who is the cover of the article, and she spoke at our summit. Here's a clip of her talking about just why Gen Z is so unique.
Newsweek magazine was forced to report a few days ago that 93% of current college students still want to get married. In a culture that tells us marriage is an outdated, anti-woman, antiquated institution. We're starting to have children at younger ages instead of waiting into our late 30s or early 40s, and they're expecting a pretty big Trump, Gen Z, maybe Taylor Swift-oriented baby boom coming from us here in the next few years. Young people are embracing faith at a rate no one ever expected. In the last year alone, calendar year, the number of young people who identified as Catholic jumped 6% in the United States. Bible sales are at record highs. In the last 4 weeks since Charlie's death, early estimates are saying church attendance is up 15% in the last month in our country, driven entirely by young people, by Gen Z. It's already working.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
I think she hits it on the head there.
Totally. I just think the future is going to look really different because, yes, like the concept of flipping the script, but also the church attendance, the Bible sales, and wherever faith is involved, it's just such an exciting place because we know that, with God, everything is possible. And, I don't know. I think it's a really exciting time to be a young person in America.
Yeah, and she highlights both those things, that family and faith are both on the rise, which, again, just signifies that priority shift. And she has a quote in here, too, that's in the article. She goes, young people are realizing that our lives are going to be so much more meaningful if we have a family to share our success with from the start. And I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, too, but just how when you have joy and then when you have success, it's so much more fulfilling if you have someone to share it with. Like we were talking about this earlier, if you see something funny or whatever, or if you have a funny story, you want to share it to someone who's close to you.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that's the same thing with success. Like, this big joy in life and you want to share it with people who are close to you. And you see all of these like entrepreneur big go-getters, which is good in its own right, but if they have no one to share it with, I've seen these interviews of them talking later, and it's like, oh, I wish that I had someone to share this with, because you have all this money, all this like, name recognition, whatever. But at the end of the day, it really just comes down to those eternal aspects, which are your relationship with God and your relationship with your family.
Yeah. And you end up missing out, and that's a lot what to talk about. Like the article opens with, for generations of women, the logic has seemed airtight. Focus on a career in your 20s and worry about starting a family once you're established in a job. And I think that the women that we are highlighting and providing as role models are doing things differently. And I think a really good example of this is Katie McFarland, who is an amazing woman. She served as President Trump's Deputy National Security Advisor in his first administration, and she didn't really have the role models that we have as young women. So we want to play this clip for you all of her talking at our Scottsdale Summit as well about her experience and what she decided to do for her job. So let's play this.
The only role model I had was the woman who lived in the apartment building next to mine in Washington. Her name was Sandra Day O'Connor, and she was the first woman Justice of the Supreme Court. So I, desperate for a role model, went up to her at the grocery store. We would see each other all the time, like nodding acquaintances. And I went up to her and I said, look, if you don't mind, Justice O'Connor, can I just ask for a little bit of advice? And she said, sure. And I said, well, I've met this great guy, and I think I want to get married, but I don't know if I want to move to New York and give up my brilliant career. I'm the highest ranking woman in the Pentagon. I'm a big deal. And she said, well, maybe. And then she said, look at it this way. She said, I have 5 sons. I had a great career. I took a little time off to raise my boys, and it worked out just fine for me. So I think it'll work out just fine for you. And it did. And I think that the great difference, though, is now, especially with Claire Booth Luce, you have a lot of role model women And that's why it's so important for us to talk to you to say, yeah, you can do it, and you can do it just as well, if not better, than any of us have done it. So I really do applaud what you're doing and the speakers that you're bringing, because it's across a whole range. It's great to have role models without having to accost a Supreme Court justice.
I love her.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, we do have to appreciate the fact that we have so many people who are setting the stage of these things, because she really didn't. The options were, you're a stay-at-home mom or you have a career, and there was no middle ground. And there were just so few women who had a career in the first place. So I mean, let me know what your experience has been. But growing up, the concept of prioritizing family when you're young and when you kind of have the most energy and you're the most able to be a parent, fit from a physical standpoint, of course, like that, using that time was never presented as an option to start a family. You had to use that time to establish your career, and then you'd be a stay-at-home mom, and then that was kind of it for working. Like, your working opportunity was over at that point. So I grew up with this understanding that those were the only two options. And if you wanted to be a mom, you would basically have to stop working. So what was like your experience? How did you receive that message?
Yeah, I think for me it was a little bit different, simply because my mom had me when she was super young. She got married at 21 right after college. Met dad. They were high school sweethearts from before, so they had been dating for a long time. And then she had me pretty early on, and I remember this from my childhood. She was working as a realtor, so she kept up her job for me and my brother. And she would just bring us along to her house tours. We would like run around the houses, play hide and seek as she was talking to the clients and things like that. And they loved us. We weren't terrors or anything. We weren't tearing up the house. We were just playing hide and seek. So like, that was cool from that standpoint, because that's how I grew up. I was like, oh, you can do both. And look, mom did it. Yeah. So, and then also just coming here and seeing these women who are also doing it, that just kind of reinforced my my lived experience growing up. But I think in college, it seemed a lot more daunting. Like, I saw it growing up. My mom did it. But then in college, these girls are like, oh, well, I'm either just here to find a husband or I'm here to kickstart my career. I'm not even dating at all in college. I'm like, oh, well, that seems pretty, daunting to only have one or the other. Literally, girls would, fail classes to go on dates, or they would only go to class and read their book and never actually step out and see society or go on a date. They would turn down dates because they were so focused on just getting this career and moving on. So, having that, those two options were just like, oh, wow. Even though I did have mom as an example growing up, and then now all these women here at the Luce Center that we're bringing in. So it's interesting. I kind of grew up with the idea of, oh, you can do both, and then high school, college came, and I was like, oh, there's only two options. And now coming and working here and meeting all these amazing women, it's kind of going back to that. You can do both, just maybe not at the same time.
And that just speaks to the importance of role models and who you surround yourself with, because you started out with a mom who was doing both, so you thought that was a possibility, and then you enter college and the narrative is very, very different. So who you choose to surround yourself with and who you are following online and who you allow to influence you has such a tremendous impact. So that's why we're so passionate at the Luce Center about providing young women with role models who are genuinely worth following and looking up to. So KT is an amazing example of kind of one of the options where she took a break. And then Emma Waters is featured in here too. And do you want to explain a little bit like kind of the option that she chose to do as a young mom?
Yeah, it says in here in the article when they're highlighting her, it says that she is both living and researching the season's approach. So she left, it's quoted here, she left a fast-paced coalition building role when she and her husband decided to have children so that she could be home with them, now ages 2.5 and 11 months, during the day. And since then, she's turned down other in-person career opportunities. And she says that she loves her work, but her top priority is her kids. So she is working now as a policy analyst for Heritage, and she works in research, and her analyzing right now, and she's advocating for a more financial support for married working families, in particular alongside the social support systems we have in place for single parent families already. So that just kind of shows her passion and she says also later in here that it's the culture that needs to change, which I think is kind of the whole point of this article. Like, the culture is starting to shift. I mean, the Wall Street Journal is covering this. So seeing this real culture shift, and even just the career opportunities for women now and men, just that there's a lot of flexibility to ensure that, you know, again, the priorities, that priorities are straight, and that people flourish as a whole person and not just in their workspace. So yeah, she's just another example of an advocate, someone who's living and researching it, of this whole topic and this whole idea.
Yeah, and I think Isabel in the article too talks about how she and her husband share childcare responsibilities because they both have flexibility. I mean, she runs a podcast for the Daily Wire, and so she gets to do all of that from home, which is such a huge blessing. And I think COVID really brought that on, and all the technological advancements have really brought that on. So the world is extraordinarily different from when our, you know, great grandparents, grandparents, and even our parents grew up. So it made sense that you did have to choose because you couldn't be in two places at once. Whereas now you can spend time doing a little work while your baby's napping. And I don't have kids, so I don't know how tired you are. I know you're really tired, but I do hear from a lot of young moms that you do have those pockets of time. And I think it really depends. I know that like your parents did homeschooling, so there's not a ton of extra time on the side for that. And that's like a full-time job in and of itself. So I just think that there's so many options and so many different paths that young women can take.
Yeah, and I remember I was talking with KT actually. She had her speech, and then we podcasted with her after. Go watch the episode if you haven't already. And she said exactly that. Like, you guys are so lucky. Number one, that you have these role models, and number two, that you can even do it.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't. Just with the advances and innovations that we have now. Yeah, it's just, and then even with my own mom, she was working with 2 kids, then she took a break. And my youngest brother is now getting pretty old, and she just accepted another like a realtor
great
contract. So she's helping this young couple, newly married actually, buy their first house. So that's her first contract in a while, I think. And it's because she has that time now that my little brother is kind of getting a little older. So she's a perfect example of you know, working, having that season, then taking time off, kids, and then going back to it. And yeah, Emma did that. Isabel is doing both. So it kind of depends on your bandwidth, I think. And I love how Emma also talks about how, like, she admits that seasons look different for everybody, which is something important to think of too. Because seasons for you might not, like Isabel is doing both. Maybe someone else can't have an infant and do a podcast, you know? So it's just, interesting to think about different bandwidths and what that means for each person.
Right. I think that both kind of the Tradwife movement and the Girlboss, boss babe, whatever you want to call it, movement have been extremely black and white, and that there's no gray area, there's no nuance, whereas this seasons concept recognizes that all women are unique and different, and all families have different needs. So it's okay to say it depends on you and your lifestyle and whatever your family looks like. Not every woman is the same. So we can't prescribe this is what you should do. But I think it's being open to prioritizing family, first of all, and prioritizing marriage. I mean, we've talked about dating a lot on this show. The dating pool when you're in college is huge, and it gets smaller kind of the years that you go on. So it makes sense that we should prioritize marriage. And it's just kind of silly to me at how appalled people are at young, like, people are shocked that I'm married at 25, you know? And it just doesn't really make sense to me why people are so put off by it. Because it's, first of all, it's so much fun. Like, it's just the best thing. So I don't know. It's such a blessing. And Isabel says this, like you mentioned in the beginning, the more people you have to share your successes with, the better, which I think is really special. So being able to have the person you're married to and being able to have kids to share all of that with is very cool, as long as it's not coming at the cost of your family's well-being. I think that's kind of the key piece.
Yeah, and I think that's where the seasons look different. It's
Right.
kind of weighing cost benefit and, discussing with your husband or your wife, depending on who's working, and just, figuring out what works.
Right. Yeah, and Kimberly, our president Kimberly, in the article says you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And that, I think, is what really distinguishes Gen Z from millennials, because millennials were told that you can have it all at the same time. And that led to both suffering careers and suffering families, because you only have so many hours in the day. And being president is so important. So I think that our generation is really charting this path that is just super exciting.
Mm-hmm. I think what millennials were told just leads to a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
And I think being family first is not anti-career necessarily. It's more just anti-burnout.
Right.
Like, if you surround yourself with people that love you and prioritize them, it just by the way it is, it stops burnout from happening in general. And it's anti-burnout, not anti-career.
Right, exactly.
That's what people are realizing now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction there. And another speaker that was highlighted is Reagan Conrad, who we love. She hosts the comment section at the Daily Wire, and she also spoke at our College Women's Summit. And she is featured in here. And let me bring up a clip of her talking. She gave a really, really, really great speech on, go watch this on our YouTube. It's called Who Are You Following? And it's Reagan Conrad's speech on faith and family. And she draws a lot on the Proverbs 31 woman. So that's kind of who she's talking about in this speech. But here is a clip from Reagan.
It's not that we should be pushing a generation of women away from working as the only way that they can be good Christian conservative women. We simply need to make sure that women have the proper order of prioritization when it comes to their lives and to their homes. Because if we as women are putting our eggs on ice for a decade to make sure that our career's thriving, then we're failing in we have a prioritization problem. Now, because for this noble wife, working is just one of the many things that she loves to do. She also sacrifices a lot. She has children and a husband that respects her. She takes care of her servants, and she opens her arms to the poor. Now, liberals often love to act like they're the only ones who truly care about the poor, although I would argue that a lot of their policies do the exact opposite. And
she has some other things there, but it's kind of on that same vein that we were just talking about with women shouldn't be discouraged away from working, because women have so much to bring to every field. And I think when you get into that more trad movement, you really miss out what women can bring. And that's sad.
And Kimberly talks about that concept too a lot in our team meetings. Like, we as women have these God-given gifts, first of all, as women, and secondly, just individual gifts that the world can benefit from. Your family can also benefit from, but the world also can too. So if that's your calling, to not shrink away from that. And I mean, Reagan's on stage sharing all of this, and she's Gen Z and she's married. She just announced she's pregnant with her first kid, which is very exciting. And she's doing it all, and she's drawing, like you said, on the Proverbs 31 woman who was an entrepreneur and cared about her community and kind of gave back there. And I liked her point on just, I think I talked about this too in an earlier podcast, but everything just needs to be rightly ordered, not necessarily balanced, because it's almost impossible to have everything balanced perfectly, but rightly ordered is a must. You have to have everything rightly ordered. Also in this article, they were talking about the statistics and the data behind all this, which I know we're both very interested in hearing all the science behind it. And it says here that as of 15 years ago, self-described conservative and liberal women between the ages of 18 and 35 were having kids at the same rate. And according to an analysis from a large national study called the General Social Survey by Samuel Perry, he found that as of 2024, roughly 75% of liberal women in this age range were childless, compared with around 40% of conservatives. And then in 2010, the difference was only 5 percentage points. So basically, he was saying that 15 years ago, liberal and conservative women were kind of on the same trend of when they're having kids, when they're not. And now we're seeing, again, this shift, this gap where conservative women are having kids earlier or just having kids in general, and liberal women are not. So yeah, seeing the data behind that is all very interesting.
Yeah. And I like to steer away from like relishing in bad things that are happening to people on the left or who identify as liberal, especially young women who have just been fed this lie. And at the end of the article, it says, I think it's a quote from Isabel. She said, "We're looking around at the anti-family state of affairs in our country and realizing that for the most part, people aren't happy or fulfilled." So that was Isabel Brown. And that's what is, and a part of that is because of this trend, is because of the trend of childlessness and low rates of marriage, which are two extraordinarily significant sources of happiness, which I think most people would say those are like, maybe not their only sources, but a huge percentage of where their actual happiness comes from. So I never want to say, oh, great, liberals are suffering or the left is suffering because they're not having kids or getting married. But I think that this issue actually can be a really important bridge between liberals and conservatives, because if we can extend to the left and say, look, you're not happy, like things didn't go as planned, you've been fed all of these lies, like here is something that recognizes women's gifts and the really, really important and meaningful role that they play in public life and in society, while also balancing that with a love for family and children. So I think if we can message this in the right way, it might be able to appeal to people who are on the other side of this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've seen this a little bit on social media too, that these, liberal women or left-leaning, just on college campuses and things too, even with the abortion issue, like kind of regretting abortion and regretting, I mean, who was that singer recently, Kelsey?
Oh, Kelsey Ballerini.
Yeah, Kelsey Ballerini. Mm-hmm. She just had this whole song about, oh, my biology clock is ticking. Did I miss the mark? And that's just like a cry from her heart. Like, did I actually miss the mark? Is it done for me? You know, things like that. And I think, as you know, the artist that she is, I think that hit a lot of people and that song got a lot of recognition. So I think you're right. I think bridging that gap is something that's very real and could be happening in the next few years.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about it because I think this is a whole new field. And Emma Waters talks about this a little bit in the article, the concept of flexible work for women and how the economy can be shaped in a way that really supports women to have flexibility, to be able to work at home. And we're seeing more and more of that. And I think when people see how much women can bring to an organization or a company, they're going to be willing to be more flexible. Because just because you're home doesn't mean you're not working. You know, there's like so many different environments that work for people. So I don't know. I think that we're on the cusp of something really, really big with this.
And I think just the realization of all of it. I remember Kimberly, again, at one of our team meetings, was saying how she was talking about this organization and how they were realizing that hiring the part-time moms was a huge plus for the company, because these moms are super productive in those 2-hour nap times when their counterparts that were in the office sitting at desks weren't.
Right.
Because if you, like you said, you can't accomplish a lot at home and in these kind of flexible situations. Mm-hmm. And almost being more, you can be more productive in a lower amount of time if you have your priorities right. Mm-hmm. And again, reducing burnout, upping productivity. It's all these things are going to come out, and I'm sure more studies in the future. There's already some coming out, which is, just really exciting. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think, that phrase, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Yeah. I think that's kind of at work there, because we would never want to say that men aren't productive or anything like that. We recognize that both men and women can be highly effective, CEOs, employees, whatever it is. But I think that that's kind of at work with, if you only have 2 hours to do something, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to get this done. So I think being able to understand that there's value in actually limited schedules, which is kind of like super counterintuitive. So I don't know. I think that there's going to be a really big shift in the workforce and how everything is set up based on this. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's very much looking up and very exciting. All these new things. Gen Z's kind of killing it now.
I
Questioning
know.
things, flipping the script.
Yeah.
Bringing a lot of excitement just for the future.
Yeah. And something I want to touch on before we wrap up is like, yes, Gen Z is flipping the script and there's a lot of excitement happening, but there's also this loneliness factor. And I know that COVID contributed to that, but I think that there's a lot more going on behind that. So Kimberly, when she was featured in the article, she told the audience that Gen Z is the loneliest generation at our College Women's Summit because we're part of these small and fractured families, because the rate of divorce is 52% now is the national average. And so people come from, and like fewer and fewer siblings too. So people don't have that community that they so desperately crave. So I think that has played a part in why Gen Z wants to have like more kids per person too, or per couple too. So
yeah, and one of our speakers, we interviewed her kind of in the first couple episodes way back, but you should watch it. Stella Morabito talks about this topic a lot and the weaponization of loneliness in the culture now. And I think Gen Z just needs to be aware that the culture is trying to take advantage of that and the loneliness that you're feeling. And yeah, we, at the Luce Center want to show girls that there is a place where you can come. There's people that agree with you and things like that. And yeah, I think I came from a big family with lots of siblings, and seeing how my parents kind of encourage each one of them to follow their dreams is really cool, because I think this is not only this way, but I think some of the girl boss mentalities, or just career chasing in general, doesn't have to be girl boss, but career chasing in general and just having that as a priority, comes from a lack of support from family, or a lack of people who just show them love and care for them. And so they chase this thing that, they have high in their mind, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to go get this and that'll bring me value. But I think the more people who are around them, loving them, advising them to chase their dreams, but also kind of taking a step back and looking at like a holistic approach of life and just seeing all the different aspects at work and make sure you're prioritizing this and this and this while also chasing your dreams is just really cool. And yeah, having siblings, having parents that support that is so valuable. And so if Gen Z are the parents that start doing that, I think we're going to see a huge shift. So yeah, even if we are the loneliest generation, if we kind of flip that and use it for good, I think we could see, a lot of good coming out of that.
Yeah. And I think it is important to zoom out on this and ask the question, why is Gen Z so lonely? And this is millennials too. Why are families so broken? Why are there fewer and fewer kids? It's because, and Liz Wheeler talks about this a lot. Go on our YouTube and watch all of her talks. Honestly, she usually touches on this a little bit. Is this attempt by global powers and powers in the US that want to break up the family unit and get people to rely on government and make them forget that they're children of God? Because that is the Marxist communist angle, and ultimately that is where all of this comes from.
I think, again, just this awareness that needs to be brought to that, and I think Liz does do a good job on that, that Gen Z shouldn't be put down. Like, it's literally an orchestrated attack. Like, this is very well thought of, there's a whole campaign really of how to present it to the public, how to get them to kind of fall for it. So Gen Z shouldn't feel dumb and be like, oh, like whatever, now we're in this loneliness thing and we're all failing. Like, there's a hopeful aspect too. But yeah, just to be aware that these are huge global powers and huge people of influence that are, getting this attack on family, which I think also is coming from a rejection of God in the culture as well, obviously. Because if big powers and big people are attacking the family, that's a very intricate, very sacred part of every culture ever.
Yeah.
Like family's always been kind of a central aspect, and they're taking out that central aspect and being like, actually, no, here are 5, 6, 7 other ways where you can get your happiness, and rely on us, the government, in the background, and not have that support system around you that we were just talking about.
Yeah. What do you, in your opinion, think is like the number one method we can use to fight against that?
Oh.
I'm dropping this on Rachel right now. So
I mean, it's hard for people who didn't have that growing up. But I think just seeing the problem and going out and just falling in love again, bringing back romance, and getting married, having family, caring for your kids. I think going out and doing it and having good examples of that is how you combat it the most. Like Isabel talks about this in her talk too at the summit. It starts with those like quiet acts of courage. And those quiet acts of courage now to go against this whole Marxist idea of rely on the government, take down family, is to actually go out and do it. I think.
Live the opposite of what they're trying to
just
get
live
you
the
to
opposite and be happy about it. Because if people start doing that, they emit this light that people are jealous of. Like, oh, why are you so happy? It's like, oh, well, maybe it's because I have a family and kids, and I've took a step back from my career, but here I am now flourishing again when I am coming back to it. Like, I think living that way and having that joy will really like start showing, and people will pique their interest. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think is the
I
way
think
to combat it?
You really touched on it with like carrying the light, and people ask questions. So funny, the other day I was at physical therapy, and the physical therapist was like, "You're so happy all the time." And I was like, I just like my life. Like I just really am like so happy with like everything in life. And I don't think I'm very, 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 very blessed, but I don't think that has to rely on your circumstances. So like I think my number one remedy would just helping people remember who they are and their identity in Christ and who God has made them to be. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're going to rely on institutions and governments and powers to tell you who you are. And you're just going to be floating in the wind, unsure of what your path is in life. But if you know that I was designed and created and the plan for my life was established before the foundations of the earth, who can touch that? I mean, I don't think that there's anything more powerful in the world than knowing who you are. So that's what I would say.
I love the verse that says, if God is for us, who can be against us?
Yeah.
And that's so true. Like there's an unshakable joy that can be lived out in any circumstance. It's hard to, and I want to mention this for all the girls maybe in college who are watching, it's hard to have that joy and have someone try to snuff it or question it so much, and they're so anti. Like I remember this one situation in college where, similar to your physical therapist story, she's like, oh, why are you so happy? I'm like, oh, because this and this, and it's just I guess just a gift to be able to be positive in certain aspects. And she's like, oh, well, that's like, she was just questioning everything. She's like kind of questioning where all that came from and my motives behind everything. I'm like, it's really like not that deep. And certain people just aren't going to get that until a little bit later. So sometimes your job is just to plant the seed in someone's life, right? And then God will take the rest. So if you're kind of being rejected for that or just overly questioned, just be that witness, plant that seed, and know that it'll probably take root later, and you probably won't see it till the other side of the veil.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a perfect Christmas message for everyone to carry.
Yes. 'Tis the season.
'Tis the season. So on that note, we are going to be taking a little bit of a break for Christmas and the holidays. So you will see us back in January. But until then, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Starting 2026.
We're excited.
Absolutely insane.
A lot more coming for you guys then. But have an amazing Christmas, and we'll see you guys next year.